we have to start. So lock the door or whatever, and the introduction to the SocIoTal project, what it is about, will be done by Rob van Kronenburg. Unfortunately, he just came back, I think, yesterday. Is that correct, Rob? From somewhere Asia, so he wasn't able to be here this morning, but he'll join us, I think, tomorrow. But anyway, he will do it over Skype. Hopefully, it will be okay, and then other guys will continue with it. Rob, it's yours, floor.
Thank you, thanks, SenZations. So, yes, sorry everybody that I'm not there. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. But yes, I was too brain dead to fly, and so sorting everything out, and everything will be fine hopefully tomorrow. But I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. So, what's it about, SocIoTal? And unfortunately, I'm going to have to say things like next slide. So, next slide, please. I took this slide from a presentation from Philips. It's showing the global trends and the challenges, population growth, urbanization, consumer empowerment, resource challenges. Basically, we know these trends, but this is the backdrop to which we work. And on the next slide, there is this visualization analytics from Stratum's Eind, which should show some moving dots, which are sort of people. And so Philips has turned itself from a company of light into a security company. So they are now selling light as a service, especially in Southern America. They go to the cities and they say, we'll put your entire city on LED. We'll go to areas that were very underserved in terms of light. People felt unhappy living there and working there. We'll put light there, and if we put light there, then the conditions will get better. So they basically are moving from products to services, and now from basically light to security. Now what this means, of course, is that these types of visualizations that are about people are incredibly transparent, and they're giving whoever is having access to all this data huge insights into what people are doing. And it's basically us, you and me, we're all there building it. So it means that at this moment in time, we are no longer building for any type of back-end operation or for any type of operation that is not dealing directly with people or with human behavior. We are now measuring behavior, as it were. So on the next slide, yeah, basically, this again, sort of these are this Philips slide. These are sort of the visions that we sort of get of what we're doing with Internet of Things and big data. And on the next slide, there's all these future sort of visions. And if you look at all these future visions, there's one constant, and the constant is that every person who has a vision has a blind spot, and it's basically it's our job to find the blind spot and basically line up all the other blind spots, because whoever is having a view on what will change, this should be LA in 2013, for example, is keeping things constant while changing others. So on the next slide. So what we are dealing with, what you are dealing with, and you will be dealing with that in the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, because the things will not go away. It may have a different name in 5 years, but it's here, and society is not really prepared. Now you know that Internet of Things is not new, because you've been working with it, and you're computer scientists and engineers and people working with technology. It's about 50 years old, maybe even older, but it's clearly a history with IBM's pervasive computing, Xerox Sparks, UBComp, and Philips Ambient Intelligence. And the reason why it's now succeeding is that it's not being claimed by one big company. So, of course, Cisco's trying Internet of Everything, and General Electric is trying Industrial Internet, and Smarter Planet put forward by IBM, And no doubt Intel and Alex has very good words and ideas about it. But the beauty is that it's quite a neutral term. It was always also a back-end operation. It was efficiency, cost-cutting. And so we still are basically a lot in the first wave of IoT, which is predictive maintenance, and which is not really building new value, building added value, but looking at where we can cut costs and become more efficient. Now in the project, we see that if we look at this in terms of what this means for the cities, that there's a lack of success stories, a lack of learning to deal with unstructured data, especially with the small and medium enterprises, and a lack of rich scenarios. And we address this by setting up meetups in 5 cities. So the partners in SocIoTal have set up 5 meetup groups, and these meetup groups now have over 1,000 participants. Of course, they don't all join all the time, but they are there regularly. And we've set up co-creation workshops with end users. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll be there, and also on Friday, if you are interested in that, I will walk you through all the steps that we did in the projects and the co-creation workshops that were set up by Nathalie Stenberg. So on the next slide, we also see that this is here to stay, this Internet of Things, and it's basically a broken computing paradigm. The current system basically is broken. This example of cyber tech costs for the UK. Businesses lost about 18 billion, and this is sort of like a yearly figure. And then the next year they spent 16 billion on sort of fixing the hacks. Now, it's clear that this demonstrates that everybody's benefiting from the situation. So the security industry and the hacking industry, as it were, is basically 2 sides of the same coin, and they're constantly sort of trying to win inches, but they will always sort of be in competition. So we need the new tools and a new paradigm on security, and this is also, I think, but this one I'm not an expert on this. What SocIoTal is aiming at for this more multimodal approach to security, assuming that there's lots of connectivity and lots of checks that you can use in order to identify people or situations. So there's a focus on different types of identifying patterns that may be interesting for identifying users, and this is clearly the future, as this old paradigm of passwords and of this kind of hacking, non-hacking is broken. So on the next slide, you see, so that we are trying to define this kind of trust and privacy and security framework. And if we look at the barriers to IoT, then this is the key. There's a huge amount of distrust at the moment of people towards all kinds of companies and all kinds of institutions and states. If we cannot bring trust into the situation, IoT as a broad operation may even fail or not be able to demonstrate added value. And if you cannot demonstrate added value, why should you pay for it? So this is clearly the basis is this trust, security and privacy framework. Also, because we see on the next slide that around 60% of European Union GDP is consumer expenditure. Now, in a way, that we can also say that's not really where we want to go, and sort of again all this consuming and all this, but this is now our reality. So if we see that this huge driver is the consumer, if the consumer does not trust, then we have a huge issue. So at the moment, the technical questions and the business questions are equally important. If you can have a beautiful technical solution, but if there is no business model and if there is no trust, then this will not take up. So to demonstrate how security and has become so important, and always was, of course, and that there are now also new targets, or relatively new targets, like the router. The router itself has become a point of attack, which makes it even more important to have this kind of multimodal approach. Then on the next slide, basically this is where we will go to this everything as a service, like in the Philips example. Philips not selling light anymore, but selling security, or in the example of a Danish company, Grundfos, who sold pumps. They went from selling pumps to selling clean water. Everybody is trying to take their value up in the chain. So selling products can be copied. Products are in this very, very fast-moving ecology of very cheap hardware, software, database storage, analytics. It's not where you can make your money. So yeah, everybody wants to move up in the chain towards what the value is. So this is when you talk about the system integrators, or the service providers, or the resellers, and of course the over-the-top players like Airbnb, Uber, but also the kind of over-the-top players that we will see coming in the Internet of Things. And when it's no longer about the platforms, are you choosing Xively or this platform or that platform or that platform? But when you will really start to choose services. And so the next slide, basically coming back, this lack of third-party trust providers is the key, and that is something that SocIoTal hopes to be a small part of, to tackle that with their tools. But these tools in themselves are very important building blocks. On the next slide, so as we identified in SocIoTal, these three barriers: the security tools, the toolkit, which is most effort is going, then the lack of involvement of citizens, where we did co-creation workshops in Santander and Novi Sad, and we did a lot, and tomorrow, and again when I'm there, if you want to have more about it, I'll show you all the work that's been done, huge amount of work's been done. And then there's the lack of this structured data, and it's a lack of knowledge by the SMEs, and this is what we found up in the meetups. So in the meetups, we see lots of people coming that have small solutions, or that are new, or that are geeks, or that have a lot of experience, that are 50, people that are 50, 60, and they get a new enthusiasm with the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino. But also companies that see that they cannot do this on their own. So they have to learn to work with unstructured data. There's a lack of success stories. There's a lack of resources in the business communities. And these are the things that we tackle with these meetups. So if you are now sitting here, and if you wherever you live, and there is not a meetup with Internet of Things, set it up now. The little trouble is that this meetup.com is also an over-the-top player, of course, because they're getting very wise. But when we started the project, there was around 50,000 people globally in the meetups. There are now 200,000. So last time I checked, a few days ago, if you go Internet of Things meetups, you find there's 200,000 people globally involved in Internet of Things meetups. That's, of course, a huge number, especially if we realize that it sort of doubles every 6 months at the rate that it has been going. So the next slide is the final slide, and thank you for hearing me out, which is quite boring, just a voice, but I'm sorry. So we're not dealing with things that are not, we're dealing with very important things. If we do not get this right, we may not have an IoT, because it may stop in the first wave, and we can see huge backlash of people that are very, very, very fed up with their data being misused in all types of ways. If we don't hand end users some sense of control over their own data, so that they can entitle certain service providers which data can be used, then we may not get to the second stage of IoT, which is the real added value that people are also willing to pay for. So that's what the week is about, so I think. And so it's about building this trust. And again, this trust has a technical component, it has a business model component, and it has a social component. And they're all equally important. So thank you, see you tomorrow, and wish you a great first day of the SenZations.
Thanks, Rob, for this interesting presentation. So I will just ask if there are any questions. So, are there any questions? So, no, apparently you were so clear and convincing that there is no questions.
Fantastic. But tomorrow I will be there, and so you can answer all the questions if you want.
Okay, thanks a lot. So see you tomorrow. And
see you tomorrow. Nice. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.